صلى الله وسلم عليك يا رسول الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة صلى الله وسلم عليك يا رسول الله وعلى أهل بيتك المعصومين المنتجبين. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات محمد. For the love of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam, with the loudest of our voices, Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. For the purification of our hearts and hastening of the reappearance of our beloved, the 12th Imam, with the loudest of our voices, Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Once again, we thank Almighty Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala for gracing us with this second night. A night we continue to pay our respects to our beloved Imam, Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam. Last night, my dear brothers and sisters, lovers and the followers of Ahlul Bayt, we looked at Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam and self-accountability. And we invited one and all, our dear brothers and sisters, to try as much as we can in our own small ways in this very complicated and complex world to engage in self-accountability. Because anyone who engages in self-accountability, as per the tradition of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim we quoted last night, that person no doubt is a true lover and the follower of Ahlul Bayt. And more importantly, you become productive and creative in whatever you do. The verse I've just quoted for tonight's discussions is Quran 51, verse 56. It's a known verse, if not to all of us, but to most of us here. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in this beautiful verse highlights on the main objective of our existence. In other words, Allah in this verse indicates to us the reason as to why He created us. He says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. I have not created ins and jinn save for them to worship me. In other words, we all created in this world, my dear brothers and sisters, to gain perfection. And the one and only way for one to be granted perfection is through servitude to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And hence, the topic of tonight is looking at greatness of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim's alayhi salam's worship. An examination of tonight is of the following brief stages. First stage, we'll look at the reality of servitude. Second stage, we'll then pay attention and focus on the way and manner Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam approached worship of Allah. There are so many lessons for I and you to take on board from the way our beloved Imam approached his relationship with Allah. Most especially for my dear brothers and sisters, the youth. If we pay attention to how this great personality, our Imam, approached Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, we should be able to go out of tonight's discussions reflecting and thinking on how we should build that solid relationship with Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. And then the last stage of our examination, we'll then look at some practical tips on how to ensure that our souls remain on course when it comes to building relationship with Allah. As I mentioned last night, these majalis, my dear brothers and sisters, are presented to us as vehicles to change ourselves. A, to become better human beings, and B, to become true lovers and followers of Ahlul Bayt, and C, most importantly, which is the aim of existence, is to connect with Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. So I seek your indulgence. Kindly try as much as you can. If nothing at all, take just a lesson. Take a lesson. Think about the lesson. Reflect over the lesson. Seek to implement the lesson. The moment you achieve that, then your attendance will be sanctioned by the Imam of our time. So first stage of the examination, the reality of servitude, haqiqatul ubudiyah. You see, Allah, being so merciful and loving God, He brought all of us to this world to represent His beautiful names and attributes. That's why we are all created. And hence the verse I quoted earlier on. There is another verse, my dear brothers and sisters, look at Surah Maryam, verse 93. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala makes it even crystal clear. In kullu man fi samawati wal ardi illa ati rahmani abda. That all those on earth and heaven, there is one particular expectation that Allah expects from each and every one of us. What is that? Ati rahmani abda. You come to Allah as a servant of Allah. And that is why if you scroll through the lives of each and every prophet of Allah, and even the lives of our beloved Imams, the Ahlul Bayt, you'll realize that each and every one of them was proud to be a servant of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Typical example, you look at the life of Prophet Isa alayhi salam. When Sayyidah Maryam gave birth to Isa, and people were so shocked because they thought Maryam was so decent. How on earth would she give birth without marriage? Maryam pointed to Isa in a known verse of the Holy Quran. The first response from Isa is that Inni Abdullah. I am the servant of Allah. Our own beloved prophets, out of all the titles given to him by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, the highest title is the title of Abd. Prophet was so proud to be called Abd of Allah, servant of Almighty Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And that is why you realize Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam is not only proud of worshiping Allah, but he was proud of being the servant of Almighty Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And if there is one thing that I and you need to reflect on is how to become a true servant of Allah. So now question. Kindly pay attention to these lines. What is servitude? Ubudiyah. There are so many definitions of servitude given by so many scholars. I will share a few with you, and then we'll immediately go into the definition given to us by the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, because Ahlul Bayt are our role models. There is no definition that can come next to the definitions of Ahlul Bayt. And if you really examine the definitions of all scholars, you realize that they all taking those definitions from the Ahlul Bayt. First example, we look at Allama Tabatabai, for example. In his tafsir Al-Mizan, he discusses Ubudiyah, and he summarized to say, when we talk of servitude, servitude simply means demonstrating that one is absolutely owned by Allah. إظهار المملوكية لله عز وجل. According to him, when one is able to demonstrate that he is owned by Allah, then you have achieved the essence of servitude. Our great marja, Sayyid Al-Khu'i, Qaddasallahu nafsahu Zakiya, in his Tafsir Al-Bayan, he discusses servitude. And he says servitude simply means at-ta'alluh. Meaning what? Unconditional attention to Allah. That Allah becomes central to your life. Allah becomes pivotal to your life. Yardstick to measure your success in life is Allah. Once you get to that level, then you have achieved the essence of ubudiyah, the essence of servitude. And as you look at Quran, Surah Al-Ra'd, beautifully verse 36, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala discusses this. Where does Allah says, I worship Allah. Allah telling the Holy Prophet, say, Kul innama, say indeed, I worship Allah alone, and I do not associate anyone with Allah. In other words, my attention is to Allah, young or old. When you make Allah your attention, Allah, you achieve greater success in dunya and akhirah. Now, some other scholars, like scholars in the field of spirituality, mystics, when they examine the essence of servitude, they said servitude simply means the following. Most of you here understand Arabic. نقل الخضوع من القلب إلى الجوارح. They said it's the transfer of humility or humbleness from one's heart to his parts of the body. Meaning what? This is what they call at-talqeen al-hissi, sensory inspiration. Meaning, that humbleness I obtain when I'm praying, when I'm worshiping, it should not remain just in my heart. The humbleness should manifest in my life. You realize when you stand to pray salah, to make salah, Allahu Akbar, you're so humble because you want Allah to accept it. So from this definition, ubudiyya is when I am able to transfer that humbleness from my heart to each and every aspect of my life. Example, just now we are all sitting here paying attention. We all attentive, we all humble. If one is able to transfer this humbleness into actions out there, then you have achieved the essence of servitude. Now let's come to our imams. As I said, our imams are our role models. There is no definition above the definitions of the Ahlul Bayt. How did our imams define ubudiyah? Kindly pay attention. First one is that conversation between Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam and Anwar al-Basri. You Google, you will find this. You ask Imam so many questions. But during the conversation, Imam highlighted on the essence of servitude. Ubudiyah. Imam said to him, servitude means three things. The first thing is that don't ever regard what you own as you the absolute owner of it but Allah. Imam said that's one. Meaning whatever you have, whatever, don't regard yourself as the absolute owner of those things. The moment you regard yourself as the absolute owner of whatever you possess, then you have not understood the essence of servitude from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam. That's the first element of servitude. Second element of servitude from our beloved Imam. Imam said, whatever you possess of wealth, note that you are just a caretaker. The owner is Allah. So regard yourself, whatever now is in your pocket, whatever is in your bank, whatever is in your house, just regard yourself as a caretaker. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala placed you there to take care of it. And it's true, we are caretakers of whatever we have. You know why? Because we may lose it or we may die and someone will inherit. So why the arrogance? Why the unnecessary pride? Why am I thinking I'm better than others? We are not owners, we are caretakers. It's like giving to you this, take care of this. After some time I will come for it. That's it. Third element of servitude from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam is that whatever you have, spend it according to Allah's dictate and wish. Not your dictate and your wish. Spend it as per the directive of Allah. If you spend it as per your own directive, then you have not understood the essence of servitude. And that is that beautiful tradition which the Holy Prophet tells us. On the day of Qiyamah, we will be questioned of certain things, isn't it? One of them is an umrihi fima afna. You will be questioned of your entire life, how you end your life, Habibi. This life is borrowed life. Allah has borrowed it to each and every one of us, young and old, especially my dear youth. You are so blessed. Make the best out of the life given to you by Allah. Because at the end of the day, when we go and stand there in front of the court of Allah, Allah will question us, how did you end your life? One. Number two, will be question of our youthfulness. Because this stage is the most sensitive stage of the life of every individual. If you want to become a solid servant of Allah, make the best out of your youthfulness. And if you don't want, may Allah forbid, then play. This stage will be questioned on the day of Qiyamah. And what's the next question? Allahu Akbar. You will be questioned of the wilayah and the love of Ahl al-Bayt. You now have the love. What are you making out of the love? Is the love benefiting you? Is the love changing your life? Are you becoming true servant of Allah? Are you becoming good human being on account of discovering Ahlul Bayt and establishing the love for Ahlul Bayt? Will be questioned on the day of Qiyamah. But look at the last one. وَأَنْ مَالِهِ مِنْ أَيْنَ اكْتَسَبَهُ وَفِيمَا أَنْفَقَهُ. You'll be questioned of your wealth. Where did you get the wealth from? And how did you spend the wealth? So that's servitude. And then Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq in one tradition concluded the argument of the essence of servitude. He said, Al-ibadatu jawharatun kunhuha ar-rububiyyah. He said, worship is like a jewel. The reality and the secret of this jewel is what? It's divinity. That when you embark on your journey of appreciation, what servitude is all about, eventually you're going to become divine. You're going to be overwhelmed by Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. So these are the meanings of servitude. Now some may ask a simple question. What's the benefit of this worship you're talking about? No doubt, we need worship. Allah doesn't need worship. Allah, out of His love for us, said, you worship. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. But really, if you look at it, Allah doesn't need it. It's like taking a football, you throw it on a wall, the ball comes back to you. That's worship. When you ask salah, the benefit comes to you, not to Allah. Majlis, the benefit comes to you, not Ahlul Bayt. Ahlul Bayt are sorted, they are done. They are on the highest level. It is for your own benefit. Somebody may ask, even tawassul, like people may ask question. Allah doesn't need tawassul. You need the tawassul to get to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So what are the benefits of worship? 3 benefits. The first one, worship brings peace of mind. You make salah. If you do it properly, you attend the majlis, you do it properly, you recite Quran, you do it properly, you engage in Islamic discussions, you do it. These are all acts of worship. First benefit, you obtain peace of mind. Surah Al-Ra'd verse 28. Highlight on this. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُمْ بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. Those who believe in Allah and they find peace and tranquility through the remembrance of Allah. And indeed, tranquility and peace is only obtained through the remembrance of Allah. That's the first benefit. That's why worship and ubudiyah is important. What's the second benefit of ubudiyah? It's an opportunity to communicate with Allah. When you go for salah, it's not just salah. You are communicating with Allah. When you take hold of your Quran, it's not just a recitation, but rather Allah is communicating with you. Each and every act of worship is an opportunity to talk to Allah. And that is why Surah Al-Ghafir, verse 60 tells us this. Allah says, "Udu'uni astajib lakum." It's not just about dua here. Call on me, meaning worship me. I will respond to your worship. Come to me. Don't run away from me. It's salat time. It's the recitation of the Quran. Come, don't go away. I am there for you. In one hadith al-Qudsi, Allah says, "Oh, the son of Adam, I love you with my whole existence. Why when I come to you, you run away from me?" In dua al-iftitah, the dua we recite every day of the holy month of Ramadan, we mentioned this. In that dua, إِنَّكَ تَدْعُونِي فَأُوَلِّي أَنْكَ وَتَتَحَبَّبُ إِلَيَّ فَأَتَبَغَّضُ عَلَيْكَ وَتَتَوَدَّدُ إِلَيَّ فَلَا أَقْبَلُ مِنْكَ. Allah, when you invite me, I ignore. When you come to me with love, I show hatred in return. In Munajat of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim, beautifully mentioned, خَيْرُكَ إِلَيْنَا نَازِلٌ وَشَرُّنَا إِلَيْكَ صَاعِدٌ. Said, Ya Allah, every single moment, your khair and goodness coming to us. But in return, every single moment, our evilness comes to you. So on the second level, we need ibadah because it's an opportunity to talk to Allah. On a final level, why do we need ibadah? Habibi, we need ibadah because it refreshes our inner machine. It rejuvenates us. Allah in Surah Al-Muzammil verse 6 tells us, "Inna nashi'ata al-layli hiya ashaddu wata'an wa aqwamu qila." Sometimes you slow down, pick up your Quran, make wudu. You will see the wonders of Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. So this is the first stage of the examination. Now let's go to the second stage. This second stage, humbly also I seek your indulgence, is to look at how Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam approached his relationship with Allah. Brothers and sisters, we're here to learn from this great Imam. Our Imams are oceans of knowledge. They are oceans of inspirations. Let us look at how he approached Allah. and take some inspirations from the life of this Imam. The first thing I would like to draw your attention to is some of the supplications Imam used to engage in while in sajda. You know, one tradition tells us, when he will be in sajda, look at the lines. Imam would call out, عظم الذنب عندي فليحسن العفو من عندك يا أهل التقوى ويا أهل المغفرة. High level of servitude, high level of ibadah. Imam Ma'soom, infallible, but Imam in sajda will call on Allah. He would say, the sin is great. عظم الذنب عندي. Sin to me is great. What I've committed is great. But let your pardon be easy to me. Then he'll call on Allah that he deserves consciousness and he is the only one who can forgive. You see the humbleness of Ahlul Bayt? How they would address Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Second example, trace of worship in his life. Abu Hanifa came to Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam. And when he came, he said to Imam Ja'far Sadiq, I've just seen Musa bin Ja'far in Imam Al-Kadhim worshipping and praying while people were passing by. So Imam Ja'far alayhi salam called Imam Musa Al-Kadhim and he said to him, this is what Abu Hanifa just said to me. Guess what was the response of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim? Let's learn from this great Imam. Inspiration, salah. Salah time, don't play. What you owe of salah, seek to pay back. Strengthen your relationship with Allah. Imam Musa Al-Kadhim said to his beloved father, oh my father, Allah's closeness to us made it that I did not even see anyone passing by. And then Imam Musa Al-Kadhim quoted a verse from the Holy Quran, Surah Qaf, verse 16. وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. That Allah said is closer to his servant than the jugular vein. So Imam said, I did not even see anyone passing by. That's high level of ubudiyah. That's high level unconditional attention to Allah. And as a result of that attention, he could not even sense anyone passing by while he was praying. And this is how we build our salah. This is how we build our ibadah. Slowly but surely to get to that level. Another trace of ubudiyah, ibadah in the life of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim is that narration tells us he would always begin his ibadah in the beginning of the night. Salah, 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 Quran. Up until Fajr Salah. After Fajr he would sit and he would do dhikr, remembrance of Allah. Narration tells us the remembrance would continue up until sunrise. And then from sunrise, Imam Musa Al-Kadhim would go into sajda. And he would repeat the following. Look at the line. I'm sharing these, brothers and sisters, so that we appreciate our Imams did not take their relationship with God for granted. They worked very hard. And that is why they are of the levels they are. Allah is pleased with them and they are pleased with Allah. Imam in sajda, he would say, Allahumma inni as'aluka ar-rahata 'inda al-mawti wal-'afwa 'inda al-hisab. Said, Ya Allah, I ask you peace during death. And I ask you pardoning during judgment. I mean, Allah make it easy for me. It's masoom. But look at the humbleness and the humility of our beloved Imam in reaching to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. You know, Isham ibn Ahmad, one of the companions of our beloved Imam, he said, one moment, I was with Imam Musa Al-Kadhim while Imam was on his horse. Suddenly he came down. When he came down straight, he went to Sajda. And he prolonged the Sajda, the prostration. Hisham ibn Ahmad, he said, I waited for him. Once he was done, I said, Oh Sayyidi wa Mawlai, oh my dear Imam, this Sajda was for what? Now guess what was the response? Allah Ahlul Bayt, Ahlul Bayt. He said, while we were going, I remembered Allah's favor in my life. And hence I came down to prostrate to show my appreciation to Allah. That's why I did the sajda. When last did you appreciate Allah for the blessings in your life? When last did you thank Allah for the love of Ahlul Bayt? Because the more you show thankfulness, Quran says it, the more Allah grants you, the more He gives you. Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam said, I came down just to thank Allah for the favor He bestowed on me. And hence Ibrahim Ibn al-Bilad, one of the companions of the Imam, he said, Imam told him, every day I do 5,000 astaghfirullah. Every day. Said, I ask Allah 5,000 times to forgive me. It's masoom. I'm mentioning this really so that we are all able to reflect. To love Ahlul Bayt is mawadda. It's not one-sided, it's two-sided. You play your part, Ahlul Bayt play their part. That's why Allah uses the term mawadda, not mahabba. How do you play your part towards Ahlul Bayt? By taking their lessons seriously. By implementing the teachings of Ahlul Bayt in our lives. And here are the servitude and the ibadah of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim, salamullah alayh. So what am I waiting for? What are you waiting for? O lover and the follower of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim. What inspiration am I taking from the life of this Imam as the year return when we commemorate the departure of this great personality? And the biggest of all, Allahu Akbar. It's Quran. Imam was known to recite Quran beautifully. To such an extent, whenever he would recite Quran, tears would overflow from his eyes and the tears would soak his beard. Now, I cannot claim to love Ahlul Bayt when I don't know how to recite Quran. Because the Holy Prophet makes it very clear. تَرَكْتُ فِيكُمُ الثَّقَلَيْنِ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَعِتْرَتِي أَهْلَ بَيْتِي. I leave two for you, two evidence. The book of Allah and the Ahlul Bayt. Because Quran is idlul etra and vice versa. You cannot hold onto Ahlul Bayt without holding onto Quran and the other way around. So Quran is important. If I do not know how to recite, then I'm taking inspiration from our Imam. But there is this dua that Imam Musa Al-Kadhim used to recite while he was in prison. And that dua summarizes his love for Allah and worship. You know what he used to say? This is in Fusus Al-Muhammad, page 222. Imam will say, Allahumma innaka ta'alamu anni kuntu as'aluka an tufarrigani li'ibadatika wa kad fa'alta falaka alhamd. Allahu Akbar. Look at the line. So many lessons to analyze from this line. To celebrate the ibadah of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam. He said, "Oh Allah, innaka ta'alamu anni kuntu as'aluk." Allah, you know, I used to ask you to grant me opportunities to worship you. You've granted the opportunity, and thank you, Allah, for that. Now question. What type of ibadah Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam asked Allah and was granted, and as a result, he appreciated Allah? Some may ask a question. May God forbid. Was Imam not worshiping Allah that he was asking Allah for an opportunity to worship him and it has been granted and he's thanking Allah? I said no. The ibadah in this dua refers to one of the three possible ibadah. So Imam made that dua. Allah, you know, I ask you, give me opportunity to worship you. You've given me the opportunity, and thank you. They said the first form of ibadah possible, which the Imam was asking Allah, is ibadatul mazlum. The worship of the oppressed. Because you see, the worship of the oppressed is of greater reward from Allah. Akthar thawaban. So Imam in that situation, he was asking Allah, grant me an opportunity to worship you when I am an oppressed. Who is an oppressed? All around enemies up in arm, torturing you. Any moment your life will go. Imam said, I was looking for that type of ibadah. That's the first possible meaning. And really, you look at all this. This demonstrates to us the situation Imam Musa Al-Kadhim found himself in Baghdad, most especially. Of course, before it was in Basra. So first meaning, أن تفرغني لعبادتك وقد فعلت فلك الحمد, refers to ibadatul mazlum. What's the second meaning of ibadah? Kindly try to understand these points. They said, ibadatu tazawwudi bil ibadah. So the Imam was asking for an opportunity to perform an act of worship which would lead to the highest act of worship. Meaning what? Ibadatu tawdi'. Farewell ibadah. So when he said, Allah, I was asking you to grant me an opportunity to worship you, you've done it. Imam is saying, no, I was asking you to grant me an opportunity to worship you, that farewell worship. What is farewell worship? I know my days are numbered. I am going. Any moment from now, I will be beheaded. Any moment from now, I will be killed. Imam said, I was looking for that opportunity to worship Allah. You see, Amirul Mu'mineen tells us, Masjid is a dunya. A dunya, masjidu ahibba'illah. Wa musalla awliya'illah. The other version said, a dunya masjidu awliya'illah wa musalla ahibba'illah. Amirul Mu'mineen said, this dunya, anywhere you look at this dunya, it is the masjid for the true lovers of Allah. Bima'ana, wherever they find themselves, they invoke the glorification of Allah. They engage in worshiping Allah. Whether uni, whether at work, whether with friends, going about with your life. When it is time to go to Allah, do not postpone it. But our beloved Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam, on a second level, is asking Allah, grant me opportunity to worship you ibadat al-tawdi'. When you hear farewell worship, what comes to mind? Eve of Ashura. Think about it. There was ibadat al-tawdi' al-wida' or al-wada'. بات الحسين وأصحابه عشية عاشوراء ولهم دوي كدوي النخل يتزودون بالعبادة. That Abu Abdullah Salamullah alayh and his beloved companions on the eve of Ashura, they kept night vigil. They were whispering and chanting the praises of Allah as if fruit falling from his trees. And hence on that night, this was Salatul Tawdi', Ibadatul Tawdi'. Abu Abdullah went to Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam. He looked at Sayyidah Zainab. He said, "Oh my beloved sister, do not forget me fi nafilatil layl. Remember me in your prayers, Zainab." It's Salatul Tawdi'. So when Imam Musa Al-Kadhim said, "Allah grant me opportunities, you've done it, Allah." Imam is trying to say, my days are numbered. Allah never deprived me of worshiping you before I depart from this world. What are you waiting, my dear brothers and sisters? You never know when you will go. Anything can happen. That's why Amirul Mu'minin tells us, whenever you pray, فَصَلِّ صَلَاةً أَحْسَنْتُ. Whenever you pray, every single opportunity presented to you to pray, consider that prayer as a farewell prayer. Pray as if after that prayer, you're gone. So Imam Musa Al-Kadhim is on another level when it comes to the worship of Allah. So this is the second meaning. The final possible meaning of the ibadah, Imam refers to this ibadatun khassa. Imam was asking Allah to grant him a special opportunity to do special worship between him and Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. وَقَدْ فَعَلْتَ فَلَكَ الْحَمْدِ. Allah, you've done it. Thank you, Allah. That is why after every salah, what do? Mustahab, you go, sajida. You thank Allah, shukran lillah, shukran lillah, shukran lillah. You thank Allah for the opportunity to pray. Don't rush after prayers, especially the young ones amongst us. Thank Allah so that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala will inspire you for the next prayer. These are the daydana. This is the styles of Ahlul Bayt salamullah alayhim ajma'in. Now last points on this. Remember the dua. Imam wanted opportunity and Allah granted. But there's another dua where Imam said, Ya mukhallis al-shajari min bayni ramlin wa tinin wa ma'in khallisni min sijni Harun al-Rashid. La'natullah ala Harun al-Rashid. I want you to look at this line. And then we reconcile and then go to the last point for tonight. Imam Salamullah alayh, Bab al-Hawa'ij, he made dua. He said, Ya mukhallis al-shajar, oh the one who free tree, who makes tree independent. Between what? Between sand, clay and water. Free me from the prison of Harun al-Rashid. Harun al-Rashid was notorious. And he sent notorious warders to Imam. And they tortured Imam left and right. Look at these chains. They tortured our beloved Imam. So Imam made dua. Allah, free me from the prison of Harun al-Rashid. Now, how do you reconcile between this dua of wanting to be freed from the prison of Harun al-Rashid and the dua of wanting to be granted an opportunity to worship Allah? كيف نجمع بين هاتين الروايتين إن صح التعبير? How do you reconcile? It's very simple. There is no contradiction. The prison where Imam asked Allah for the opportunity and he thanked Allah for it is different from the prison where he asked Allah to free him from. You know, in Basra, Isa ibn Ja'far, that was the first prison warder. Imam was able to worship Allah. Of course, it was prison, torture here and there. But Imam alayhi salam worshipped Allah. And you know, of course, from Isa ibn Ja'far, they transferred him to Baghdad. From one prison to the other. The first one, Fadl ibn Rabi', where he got tortured. Then from Fadl ibn Rabi', Fadl ibn Yahya. And then the last one, the West, Sindi ibn Shaikh. So Imam Salamullah alayh, when he was in this prison of Sindi ibn Shaikh, it was bad. Yes, he was worshipping, but it was bad. So Imam said, Khalisni min sijni Harun al-Rashid. Free me from this prison of Harun al-Rashid. Why? Imam was not complaining, because he wanted to do extra worship for Allah. Extra ibadah. Do you get worked up when you don't get a chance to pray? How do you feel? That will tell your relationship with Allah. Some said no. This dua of Imam, Ya Allah, free me from the prison of Harun al-Rashid. It was dua for the companions of Imam, because some companions were also imprisoned and they were also tortured. So Imam alayhi salam made dua for them to be freed. But then the first dua of ibadah, it was specially for Imam alayhi salam. Then conclusion, last stage, very brief. Practical tips on how to remain on course, to ensure that ibadah in your own way. Don't stay away from ibadah, regardless of your circumstance. If there is one thing you do not miss, salah, regardless of your circumstance. You've seen the life of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim. Make your Imam proud. Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam, for more than 15 years in prison, torture upon torture, for only one reason: to preserve the authentic Islam. Ahlul Bayt went through whatever they went through to bring to us this authentic Islam. That's why they persevered. That's why they had forbearance. وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا. They were patient, they forbear. So in return, take it on board and say, you know what? My Imam was in prison. He suffered a lot, but he kept worshiping Allah. I am free. I'm able to move about. It's just a small challenge here and there. Let me take this inspiration from my Imam and ensure that I keep worshiping Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. How do I ensure that I remain on course? Because we live in a very complex world, very challenging world, especially to our youth. It's not easy. I do know, I understand. The world wants a bigger chunk of you, and the religion of Islam wants some chunk of you. Left, right, front, back, challenges. Different kinds of challenges. It's true, it's there. And that is when the ibadah becomes imperative in the midst of these challenges. So how do I do? I'm just going to mention only points, and tomorrow we'll continue, inshallah. The first thing, my dear brothers and sisters, remember that tradition of our beloved Imam. روحوا قلوبكم ساعة بعد ساعة فإن القلوب تمل كما تمل الأبدان. Imam said, refresh your souls an hour after an hour, because souls become bored the way bodies become bored. Souls also get tired. So how do you refresh it, Habibi? Ibadah. Allah knows our situation. That's why every day at one point ibadah, free, another point ibadah. Otherwise, without this ibadah, it will be cumbersome to navigate through. It's tedious. روحوا قلوبكم ساعة بعد ساعة رواية من أهل بيت العصمة والطهارة. It's a riwayah from أهل البيت عليهم السلام. Not only daily, you realize every month there is a special act of worship. We are in Rajab al-Murajab or Rajab al-Asab. There is a special ibadah. Ala wa man sama min Rajabin yawman imanan wa ihtisaba istawjaba ridwanullahi al-akbar. Whoever fasts for a day in the holy month of Rajab, you trigger the greatest pleasure of Allah. Unique worship. You go Sha'ban, unique worship. Shahr Ramadan, unique worship. Shawwal, unique worship. Why? Because this heart, if you don't refresh it with worship, it becomes bored. You then become not interested. So therefore, it's important. At least begin daily prayers. One verse of Quran every day. It's not going to take your entire life, but it helps. That's one. Second practical tip: monitor your soul. Monitor your soul. What do I mean by this? Because the Holy Prophet said, لِلْقُلُوبِ إِقْبَالٌ وَإِدْبَارٌ فَإِذَا أَقْبَلَتْ فَاحْمِلُوهَا عَلَى الْفَرَائِضِ وَالنَّوَافِلِ وَإِذَا أَدْبَرَتْ فَاحْمِلُوهَا عَلَى الْفَرَائِضِ فَقَدْ. Prophet said, because our hearts, our souls are of two moods. Good mood and bad mood. Some days you are on top of your game, you are happy, enjoy. You know, you're in a good mood. Narration says when you are in a good mood, do those that are compulsory and those that are optional. But the day you realize you are down, reach a rock bottom, just do those that are compulsory and don't worry about the optional ones. So you have to monitor your souls. Monitor. That's number two. Number three, friendship. It's called Aqlun Jama'i. Friendship. Your friends can make you and break you. Best friends are those who lead you to Allah and Ahl al-Bayt. So friendship are important. And then the last practical tip is what? Allahu Akbar. Reflection. Reflect. Every day ask yourself, as I mentioned last night, how do I go about my life? Have I sinned against Allah? Have I missed my salah? Every day ask yourself. It's between you and Allah. Tabarak wa ta'ala. And in conclusion, my dear brothers and sisters, if you truly want to enjoy the worship, then there must be ahatun nadam. Have to regret the past. And not only ahatun nadam, when you remember the sins, feel bad. And when you sincerely feel bad, tears will overflow from the eyes. And then ask Allah to soften your hearts so that you are able to worship Him. Now let us take our hearts to the holy city of Kadhimiya. And remember our beloved Imam Musa Al-Kadhim. In those difficult moments, he had to endure. As narration tells, from one prison to the other, from one torture to the other, from one pain to the other. But you know, scholars, by looking at those traditions of imprisonment of our beloved Imam, they described how the prison was. Number one, they said the prison was too narrow. Imam Musa Al-Kadhim could not sit nor stand. Can you imagine that? In the prison, he couldn't sit, he couldn't stand. He was between sitting and standing. And this no doubt reminds us of the prison of Sayyidah Zainab alayha salam in Sham. They were imprisoned by Yazid alayhi la'na. While in prison, Sayyidah Zainab could not sleep. Not only the narrowness of that prison, even the food they were giving to them in that prison was so little, as in the case of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim. Sayyidah Zainab wouldn't eat the food, she would give it to the children to eat. Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam, my dear brothers and sisters, he could not sit, he could not stand. Narration tells us it wasn't only this. Imam, while in that prison, he couldn't tell whether it was a day or night. It was a darkness upon darkness. He couldn't tell whether it was morning or evening or afternoon. And this reminds us of Shami Ghariba, that eve of the 11th, after they butchered Abu Abdullah. Now what they did, they came with their horses and trampled on the body of Abu Abdullah. They came and broke each and every bone of Abu Abdullah. They came and kicked the body of Abu Abdullah. After that, they went and set the camp of Abu Abdullah on fire. Sayyidah Zainab would go up and down in the darkness of that night, protecting the women and the children. But on that night, one lady Dailam would give piece of cloth to her servant. She would say, go, when you come across the body of my husband, Zuhair ibn al-Kain, cover his body. He went around Karbala. He came back holding the cloth in his hand. Dailam asked him, haven't you seen the body of Zuhair? He said, oh Allah, I've seen the body of Zuhair. But when I made attempts to cover the body of Zuhair, I then saw the body of Abu Abdullah. In the darkness of that night, Sayyidah Zainab would go up and down protecting them, and she was then looking for Sayyidah Rabab. A man then approached Sayyidah Zainab. She asked him, have you seen a lady around? He said, I heard the voice of a lady from far. He then showed her where the lady was. Sayyidah Zainab approached Rabab. She said, Rabab, why don't you come and take a rest? She said, Zainab, I am looking for the body of Ali al-Asghar. They've now given us water and I have breast milk. I'm looking for my Asghar to breastfeed my Asghar. Allahu Akbar. In the darkness of that night, remember that moment, Imam Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam, while in that prison, he couldn't tell whether it was day or night. He couldn't tell whether it was the time for Salah or not the time of Salah. In that darkness, they will torture Imam Musa Al-Kadhim. Likewise, Zainab alayhi salam, while she was going up and down in Karbala, as it was narrated from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, when Mansur al-Dawaniki set the house of our beloved Imam on fire. Imam managed the fire, but Imam couldn't stop crying. They approached Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq and they asked him, oh Imam, the fire is over. Why can't you stop crying? Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq looked at them and said to them, Wallah, I've now understood what my auntie Zainab went through on the night of the 11th of Muharram. Zainab alayhi salam, while in that moment, naturally she got tired and began to sleep. A man in a black cloth appeared to Zainab alayhi salam. She called out, oh man, we've been been hurt so much. Don't hurt us anymore. The man said, Zainab, can't you remember your father? She said, Father, where were you when they severed the two arms of Abbas? She said, Father, where were you when they chopped Qasim into pieces? She said, Father, where were you when they sat on the chest of Abu Abdullah? Imam Musa Al-Kadhim, mu'mineen and mu'minat, brothers and sisters, was in that situation. At one point, he looked at them and he said to them, is it time for Salah? Of course, Imam knew the time of Salah. Is it time for Salah? You know what they did? They then removed the pole from the head of Imam. When they removed the pole from the head, Imam looked outside to get the light of the day. While Imam was looking outside, a man appeared from behind and he smacked Imam Musa Al-Kadhim. But not only that, after smacking, he then began to kick the face of Imam Musa Al-Kadhim. Ala la'natullah ala al-qawm al-zalimin. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Wa say'alamu alladhina zalamu ala Muhammad ayya munkalabin yankalibun.